Welcome back, YouTube, to another episode of DP Broadcast, and today we've got my first official mock draft here on the channel. Before the Combine starts in just about a week, wanted to get a mock draft in first. Throughout the Combine, we're going to have news, risers, and fallers all throughout the week, so make sure you're subscribed and following the Instagram and Twitter at dp.broadcast, and let's get right into this mock draft where there will be some trades. It's going to be a fun one. The Raiders taking, of course, quarterback Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana. No doubt that this is going to be the pick here. Definitely could see a possibility that the Raiders just say, hey, our roster is not nearly good enough right now. We do have to trade back and maybe gain more picks so that we can take our quarterback of the future next year instead of forcing it right now. But I just don't see that happening. NFL teams, when they're in the position to get their franchise quarterback and they know that they can be their guy, that's exactly what they're going to do. And the Raiders are going to take Fernando Mendoza first overall. I have no doubt about that. He is an incredible player. Maybe not the greatest quarterback, first overall pick quarterback prospect that we've seen in the last decade or so, but he is a very good player in his own right and should be a very good, worthwhile pick for the Raiders. Number 2 overall, the Jets take Arvell Reese, linebacker out of Ohio State, offers you that edge rusher, off-ball linebacker versatility. And when you look at a guy like Arvell Reese, you really think back to Micah Parsons coming out of Penn State, a guy that people said has that versatility. He could play off ball. He could come off the edge, and we see Micah Parsons, who has transitioned into that full-time edge role in the NFL. Of course, one of the best defensive players in the NFL. And I'm not saying that Arvell Reese is going to be Micah Parsons, but when you think about a guy of his build and his stature, that's really the upside that you think of. And if you're taking a guy number 2 overall, linebacker, edge rusher, you're thinking that he has the upside to be one of the best defensive players in the NFL, and I think Reese certainly has that. Could certainly improve at his pass rush plan. That's definitely something that could improve going into the NFL, but he was not a full-time edge rusher in college, as we said, played a little off-ball and a little off the edge. Sonny Styles breaking out for Ohio State really allowed Reese to become more of a full-time edge rusher, but still learning the position, so I think he'll improve a lot in the NFL, and I think he would be a great pick for the Jets at number 2 overall. Could certainly see it. Is probably looked at as the favorite right now. I've seen some people think that they might go David Bailey, maybe Reuben Bain, or one of the receivers even at number 2, or maybe a trade down spot for the Jets. But I do think that Arvell Reese is the most likely pick here right now. Just offers you the most upside and has that freaky athleticism, has the potential to, as I said, to be one of the best defenders in the NFL. Number 3, the Cardinals take Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah. I've seen a lot of people say that Maui Noah is more likely to go number 3 to the Cardinals than Fano is. I do think that Fano is the more likely guy for the Cardinals to take, and it's really because you just look back at this playoff run and you see how much Will Campbell has struggled after going 4th overall to the Patriots last year. The concern with him was the short arms and that he really wasn't built to play tackle in the NFL, and I think a lot of teams are going to look at Maui Noah and see the same thing. Fano is a much more polished run blocker than Maui Noah, has some space to improve as a pass blocker, but I think he has some really good upside, and I could see the Cardinals just wanting to bookend their tackles for the future with Fano on the right side and Paris Johnson playing on the left side for whoever the quarterback of the future is going to be in Arizona. It's probably not a guy on the roster right now, so you really want to just solidify those tackle spots before that quarterback gets there. Number 4, the Titans go David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech. One of the best players on the best defense in the country in college football. David Bailey, just an incredible player, had a crazy breakout year this year at Texas Tech. And when you talk about David Bailey, you talk about a guy that's just a closer. And you can talk about the pressure numbers all you want with some other guys, but at the end of the day, if they can't sack the quarterback, they can't sack the quarterback, and that's not as likely to improve in the NFL as people think. But with David Bailey, those numbers show. I mean, this guy, this is a closer. This is a guy that you want on a big-time 3rd down to be rushing the passer, and that's exactly what he's going to be here for the Titans at number 4 overall. There's some questions about him as a run defender. He's a little on the smaller side in terms of his frame, but overall, I do think he offers you elite upside from a number 4 overall pass rusher, and David Bailey at least is going to offer you a very high floor as a pass rusher with a lot of room to improve as a run blocker, and I think he could do it. At number 5, the Giants take Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. This is one that I think Giants fans are really going to love, and I do think Downs is going to end up going higher than people think. People think that the positional value is off. Kyle Hamilton was a great prospect, and he went 14th overall, but I think that NFL teams definitely value the position more than they did back when Hamilton was drafted, and not only that, but I think Downs is significantly ahead of Hamilton as a prospect. And that's coming from someone that really liked Kyle Hamilton coming out of Notre Dame. I thought he was one of the top 5, top 10 players in that draft. But Caleb Downs, in my opinion, I don't know if I can name more than 1 or 2 guys in this draft better than him. Just how sure he is as a tackler in the open field and good in coverage. I mean, there's really not another player in the country like him. And if you're the Giants, you're really trying to shore up that secondary. You can't fix a secondary with one guy. But if there was one guy in the draft that could fix your secondary as much as possible, it's going to be Caleb Downs. I mean, this is a guy that's going to come in and just be an absolute game changer on the defensive side of the ball. And you know that John Harbaugh is going to value this position with Kyle Hamilton. And that's really why the connection has been made from Downs to the Giants. But number 5 overall, Caleb Downs would offer some really big help to the Giants at the secondary. At number 6, the Browns go Cardinal Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Keep him in state. Send him to Cleveland. The Browns in desperate need of a big-time receiver, and they could grab one here at number 6 overall. In this scenario, they have their choice of the top 3 guys, and they end up going with Tate. Keep him in state, as I said. Cardinal Tate is just an incredible player. I mean, you look at just how much he's improved from last season to this season, and a guy that was already so good the season prior, but just got so much better as a route runner, so much better at the catch point. And those are really things that scouts were looking to see improve from him. And he fully established himself as a top pick in this draft because of the way that he played this season. I mean, if there's one thing, a couple things to nitpick for Tate, I'd say I question the way that he showed up in the Indiana game. Just very not very involved in the offense in that game, and maybe that just wasn't the game plan. Indiana's a good defensive team, but I really didn't like the what I saw from him in that Big Ten championship game in terms of just how involved he was in the offense. Really didn't really look like he was playing 100%, honestly. But overall, it's hard to deny the film from Cardinal Tate. He's one of the best receivers in the entire draft, and here he is the first one off the board to the Browns, a team that desperately needs a receiver, as I said, has Jerry Jeudy right now. He's a bit inconsistent, a bit up and down, and aside from that, they really don't have much else in that receiver room. They've got Cedric Tillman, who's also a guy that's shown some flashes, but overall, they just need some consistency at the wide receiver 1 position. If you really want to get a good look at Shedeur Sanders, according to what Todd Monken's been saying, then you got to go get him some weapons. And Cardinal Tate, along with Harold Fannin and the other 2 receivers that I mentioned already, would be a solid passing attack and some solid weapons for Shedeur Sanders. At number 7, the Washington Commanders go Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, my number 1 player in this draft, and they would get an At number 7, the Washington Commanders get Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, one of the best players in this entire draft, but another guy that you just question the positional value. And it's interesting to try to find a landing spot for him in mock drafts because you really just have to determine what teams would take a shot on a running back when teams that are picking at the top of the draft usually just have other positions of need that they need to fill and shouldn't use a top 10 pick on a running back. But Love is almost certainly going to go in the top 10. If not taken by one of these top 10 teams, then I think someone will certainly trade up for him. So it's really hard to find him a landing spot, but the Commanders are one that I think makes sense. They clearly don't have the guy in the running back room right now. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt showed some decent games last season. They really had a revolving door at the running back position with a bunch of other guys, but just for some stability in the backfield. And I mean, that running game would be absolutely scary with Jaden Daniels at quarterback and Jeremiah Love at running back. If Daniels can stay healthy and get back to his rookie season form next season, the Commanders' offense would be one that is difficult to game plan for. And they still have some holes at the receiver positions, but that could always be filled through free agency and some other ways. And especially just if that's your backfield with Love and Daniels, I don't think you need all too much of a passing attack. Your running game is going to be so good, but of course they will have to add some other receivers. And when I talk about just trying to find a fit for a guy like Love, I do look at the Commanders because of Adam Peters, their current general manager, who was the GM in San Francisco before he got to Washington in 2024. And San Francisco, a team that traded some draft capital to get a guy like Christian McCaffrey, who was the best running back in the NFL at the time, helped them get to a Super Bowl as one of the best players on that team. So I could definitely see him valuing the position, trying to get a big-time running back the same way that McCaffrey helped the development of Brock Purdy. I think Love can absolutely help Jaden Daniels evolve into one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and get the Commanders back to the NFC Championship game that they were in not too long ago. Our first trade of this mock draft, the Dallas Cowboys are moving up to number 8 overall with the New Orleans Saints and taking defensive end Ruben Bain Jr. out of Miami. Don't think I need to elaborate too much on why they'd pick a guy like Bain. I mean, they've got Donovan Ezeraku, who they drafted last year as their really pure pass rusher, and that's what makes this such a good fit with Bain, is that Bain is a guy that can do it all. You don't want another pure pass rusher on the other side of the line from Ezeraku. You want a guy that can be there on all three downs. And Bain is absolutely a guy that can do that. Not to say that Ezeraku can't evolve into that, but Bain is a guy that you really look at as a run defense first type of guy, which is crazy to say because he is really good as a pass rusher, but his run defense is arguably the best in the draft. And he would be a big-time piece to add to that Cowboys defensive front. They would be really scary with Bain and Ezeraku off the edge and then Quinnen Williams in the middle. That would be a really hard defense to run the football, and especially if they end up keeping Kenny Clark at defensive tackle. In this trade, I have the Saints actually receiving both picks 12 and 20. And my reasoning for this is just because if you're the Cowboys and you can move up to number 8 and get Ruben Bain, I know it's a lot to give up both the first-round picks, especially the pick that you received in the Micah Parsons trade. Going to be hard to back up, but at the end of the day, if you're the Cowboys, you say, I'd rather have Ruben Bain than have the two guys that I would draft at number 12 and number 20. And I think that is absolutely a good way to look at it. Ruben Bain can be that edge rusher of the future, has the potential, as I've said, with a bunch of these guys at the top of the draft, has the potential to be one of the best defensive linemen in the entire NFL. Ruben Bain, one of the most highly regarded players in this draft, and if the Cowboys are able to move up and get him at number 8, jump the Chiefs at 9, who I think would absolutely take him, I think they would absolutely do that. Dallas Cowboys wind up with Ruben Bain at number 8 overall. So after the Cowboys jump up to 8 to grab Ruben Bain ahead of the Chiefs, they are sitting here at number 9, and they grab Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. Wide receiver, an undervalued need here for the Chiefs going into next season. Also, you don't know who the quarterback is going to be to start off next season because of Mahomes' injury, so might need to get that guy all the help that he can get with this receiving core, and a lot of question marks in that receiver room. Rashee Rice definitely has a lot of question marks off the field and injury-wise. You really don't know what's going to happen with him. And then outside of that, I don't really view Xavier Worthy as a guy that's going to be your wide receiver 1 of the future. I think Makai Lemon can absolutely be that guy, just to get a guy that can catch the ball over the middle of the field and you can really line up anywhere as a receiver. Makai Lemon would instantly, in my opinion, be the Chiefs' wide receiver 1 and would take that offense to a whole nother level. And when Mahomes comes back, the Chiefs going to, of course, try to be Super Bowl contenders once again. This would be a huge boost to the offense. At number 10, the Bengals go with a little bit of an unorthodox pick for their organization. They go with Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. Not a position they'd usually value this high, but the Bengals really just need to start doing everything differently than the way that they've been looking at things. And I think this would be a great start, grabbing one of the best players in the draft, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which is a spot that it's no secret that you've been struggling in the past couple years. He would instantly elevate their defense, just get a guy in the middle of that field to really, really just be a solid player that's reliable in the open field and can cover tight ends, cover running backs. Sonny Styles, really don't need to sell you on him as a player. One of the most sure things in this entire draft. The Bengals absolutely need linebacker. I mean, they had 2 rookies starting last year, and it was a mess for them on the defensive side of the ball. Styles would offer them, as I said, some stability at the linebacker position, a 4-year contract, of course, 5 years with the 5th-year option. The Bengals absolutely need a guy in the middle of the field, and Sonny Styles would be a huge boost to that defense. At number 11, the Dolphins grab Mansour Delane, the cornerback from LSU. Jeff Hafley coming in. The Dolphins definitely entering a rebuild phase for their franchise, and I think Hafley with this 11th overall pick is just going to want to grab a cornerstone for his future defense. Delane can absolutely be that. He's just a sticky guy in coverage. I mean, really great instincts. The only question marks that people really have about him is the athleticism, which is something that I am a little worried about translating to the NFL in terms of just play speed and play strength. But you can't deny the film with this guy. He is just a baller, has a nose for the football, and Mansour Delane is going to be probably the first cornerback off the board in this draft. I would think likely the first cornerback off the board. And here he goes to the Dolphins at 11, who are in desperate need of some secondary help. I don't think that's a secret. And here Jeff Hafley grabs a cornerstone for his defense. Dolphins, of course, entering a rebuild, but they got to get someone here in the first round that can really be a difference maker, and I think Delane can be that instantly for the Dolphins. The Saints, I think, get their best case scenario here. They wind up trading down and still getting one of the top receivers in the draft in Jordan Tyson, the receiver out of Arizona State. It's no secret that Shuck needs another guy on the outside. I mean, outside of Chris Olave, the Saints really have no one in that receiver room, and Tyson is a guy that the injury is definitely a big question mark. And it's going to be difficult for a team to take a shot on him if he's not cleared of that medical history, because it's rough. I mean, he's been injured almost every year that he's been in college football. But Jordan Tyson is just an incredible player. And when you watch the film, it's just a guy that you would expect to be a top 5 pick, if not for the injury history. But the injuries are a factor, so I do think that will drop him a little in the draft. The Saints take a shot on him at number 12. As I said, desperately need another guy on the other side of Chris Olave. I think Tyson can be your true X receiver. And the Saints who are really trending up recently with their offense, and Tyler Shuck has looked really good. He looked good in the second half of last year when he got the starting job. Chris Olave looked like one of the best receivers in the NFL last season after Shuck sort of unlocked him when he started playing really well. So the Saints definitely have a good future to look ahead to, and grabbing Jordan Tyson here would be a big boost to their offense. At 13, the Rams go Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. And Simpson, a guy who showed a lot of talent in that first half of the season. And before that midseason slump, people thought this guy could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And that's the talent that you really can't deny. You do have to acknowledge the second half of last season where he really fell off a cliff. And so did Alabama's offense as a whole. Really didn't have the greatest weapons around him, not the greatest blocking up front. But Simpson made it work for the first half of the season, and he also made it work in that first-round playoff game against Oklahoma. I think that's one of the most important games to watch when you're watching Simpson, because Alabama was down big in the first half, and they came all the way back, scored so many unanswered points to end up winning that game. And that was in large part because of Simpson. As a player, I do think that Simpson has some high potential. And if there's one team that I think could absolutely unlock him, it's got to be the Rams. And that if he winds up in Sean McVay's offense, I mean, really anyone, but there's no coach that I trust more to develop a guy like Ty Simpson than Sean McVay. And for him to take over for Stafford after he eventually leaves, which will probably, in all likelihood, be after next season, sit behind the reigning MVP for a year, learn for a season, and then take over the next season. The Rams need their answer at quarterback after Stafford leaves. I don't think that's something that McVay and the Rams organization wants to leave until next season, where Stafford could either retire or leave LA. But I do think that the Rams could go quarterback at 13, and it would obviously be Simpson. And the biggest reason is just because if you're the Rams, you're just not expecting to be in a position like this at any time over the next few years. Or you're really hoping not to, but you're a team that's been in the playoffs almost every year, and you don't expect to be picking at 13 anytime soon. You happen to be up here because of a trade that really worked out for you last season. So I think you got to take advantage. You got to take the quarterback when you have the chance to, and Simpson could absolutely be the quarterback of the future for Los Angeles. Our next trade here in this mock draft, the Vikings go with Caleb Banks, the defensive tackle out of Florida, trading up with the Baltimore Ravens at number 14 overall. And I think that defensive tackle is, of course, going to be a position that teams really start to value more. And I think we're going to start to see that in this draft with a bunch of defensive tackles, at least 4 or 5, that could end up going in the first round. Caleb Banks, the first one off the board here. And Banks is a guy with his athletic traits. I mean, a coaching staff is just going to fall in love with him. and say that they can develop him into one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. I think Banks can go as high as number 9 overall to the Chiefs. I considered him at number 9 to the Chiefs, ended up dropping here to 14, where the Vikings end up trading up for him. If Brian Flores can get his hands on this guy, that's going to be a scary sight. Him and Brian Flores' defense will truly be a great fit for Banks, and I think that's why the Vikings make the move to trade up for him. Probably give up some later picks in this draft, maybe some pick swaps. I'm not big on including the details in the mock draft. I don't think it's all too important, but yeah, Caleb Banks at number 14 overall to the Vikings. I think that this is one of my favorite fits in the entire draft. If the Vikings are able to get their hands on him, I do think that Banks could end up going earlier, but in here, of course, we have the Vikings trading up for him, which is absolutely a scenario that I could see. Vikings do need to upgrade that defensive front, but as long as Flores is there, Vikings defense is always going to be good. This is really getting a piece for the future, and of course that can make an impact right away, but Banks, really that long-term upside is what you look at. Back-to-back trades here in this mock draft. The Philadelphia Eagles are moving up to number 15 overall to grab Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon. The Eagles desperately need another option on that offense if A.J. Brown gets traded, which is absolutely a possibility that I could see. Now, I do think that they're going to go and add another decent receiver, maybe a Michael Pittman or another decent guy that could be on the market potentially if they do wind up trading A.J. Brown. But in this scenario, I think that the Eagles grabbing Kenyon Sadiq would be a massive boost to that offense. Sadiq, just such a high potential guy, an athletic freak, and I say it all the time, but this is a guy that really embodies that at the tight end position. He does have some room for improvement in terms of being more technically sound with his routes, but in terms of just speed and as a receiver overall, not too much of an inline tight end, but Sadiq absolutely going to elevate an offense and give Jalen Hurts another great option. Here at number 15 overall, the Eagles trading up with the Bucs for tight end Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. At number 16, the New York Jets stay put and draft Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. Another one of those big-time defensive tackles in this draft, and this guy is just an absolute run stuffer. And he doesn't offer you too much in terms of pass rush. He did show some flashes last season, but this guy is a game wrecker just stuffing the run in the middle of a defense. And I think that a team like the Jets would be all over a guy like this, trying to replace a guy like Quinnen Williams that they traded for this pick. So I do think that this would be a great fit. Quinnen Williams, obviously, definitely a higher end pass rusher, just in terms of upside, than McDonald is, and trying to replace a guy like that is always going to be difficult. But Caden McDonald's a great player in his own right in Ohio State, with 4 players already drafted here in the top 16, 3 on the defensive side of the ball, and 2 to the New York Jets. They draft Arvell Reese at number 2. They double up in the front 7 and grab Caden McDonald, trying to build that defense for the future. Number 17, Francis Mauigoa finally comes off the board, a guy that people really think can be a top 3, top 5 pick in this draft, the tackle from Miami. But this is a fall that I could absolutely see. And of course, this is just one mock draft, one specific scenario. There are other mock drafts that we could do that would absolutely have Mauigoa in the top 3, top 5, top 7 of the draft. And there's plenty of teams that could use him. But in this scenario, I'm just seeing a world where teams really value length at the tackle position, and most teams are really going to see him as a guard. And if there's a team that's going to take a shot on him here in the top end of the draft, I do think it's going to be the Lions. And if he's there, I don't see the Lions passing on him. They desperately need a guy in the interior of the line. So if Mauigoa, if his future is at guard, then this would be a great fit for the Lions. They love their offensive linemen. They love their tough guys. And Mauigoa is absolutely that. He's so strong. And that's really why I think he separates himself from Will Campbell, and he's a better prospect than Campbell was, because Mauigoa, yeah, he has the short arms, but I just think he's stronger. I just think he's more physically built than Campbell was. Campbell, of course, getting knocked back a lot in that playoff run. Mauigoa, I think, will be able to hold his own more, and the Lions would be able to play him at tackle. They have Taylor Decker, who's getting up there in age, going to need a replacement, but maybe groom Mauigoa into your tackle of the future and play him at guard in the short term. We'll see what happens there. But Lions going Francis Mauigoa at 17 is 100%. I think that if he's there, that's a home run pick for Detroit. At 18, the Ravens, after trading down with the Vikings, grab Akeem Mesidor, the edge rusher out of Miami. Back-to-back Miami players off the board. And Mesidor was arguably the best pass rusher on his team this past year, which is crazy to say with Ruben Bain, but just from a pure pass rush perspective, I think that Mesidor could absolutely be that guy for an NFL team. Now, of course, they're going to look at the age. He's going to be 25 years old at the start of next season, and that is not a guy that you'd ever expect to go in the first round. And that's why I really think that if Mesidor is going to go in the first round, it's going to be a contender. I don't see a team at the top of the draft like the Dolphins taking Mesidor, because they're just a team that's building for the future. And by the time that the Dolphins or another team at the top of the draft are ready to compete, Mesidor is already going to be 28, 29 years old at the end of his rookie contract. So a team like the Ravens makes sense. A team that just brought in Jesse Minter to be their head coach. They're changing their defensive philosophy. Want to get some new edge rushers in there. Traded Odafe Owe last season. He was really the best pure pass rusher on that team. It does look like they're going to get Nnamdi Madubuike back next season after his really bad injury. But it does look like he's going to be back for next season. So that's a huge boost to that defensive front. And Mesidor would just really improve the floor of this defense. Also one of the most sure things in this draft. I think Mesidor is clearly going to be a really good player in the NFL. It's just which team wants to take a shot at a guy, or not a shot, but which team wants to take a guy that is 25 years old. And he's going to be 25 years old when the season starts. I think it's got to be a team that thinks they can compete right away. And for the Ravens, Mesidor is a guy that can help them in their quest to win a Super Bowl next season. At number 19, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher from Auburn. And this is the guy in this draft that probably looks the part more than anyone else. And just in terms of build and athleticism, you think he's one of the best players in the draft. Now, he didn't put up the production that some of the other guys did, which is why he's going to drop. But there's going to be a team that just falls in love with his traits and just says, we can develop this guy if we can get him on our roster. And Keldrick Falk is absolutely a player with elite upside at the edge rusher position. Didn't offer much in terms of pass rush last season with his low sack numbers. And people compare it back to a guy like Shamar Stewart last year. I think Falk is better than Stewart. He just has so much more athletic upside. And I think that Falk was even better as a run defender than Stewart was last season. Falk really going to offer you just high-end run defense right away at the edge rushing position, with the opportunity to also develop as a pass rusher. So not going to be a three-down guy right away, but a guy that you can definitely develop into a three-down player at the edge rushing position. The Panthers need some help on the defensive line, and this would be a big boost. The Saints at number 20, a bit of a surprising one here. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, the safety from Toledo. The Saints, after trading back from number 8, they wind up with number 12 and 20 from the Cowboys, and here they invest in the DB room and grab a guy, again, that doesn't play the most valuable position, but is just a really good player. And he did it at a low-end school in Toledo, but man, Toledo's been producing DBs recently. Of course, Quinyon Mitchell, the most notable of them just a couple years ago, and now Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, who looks like he can be a superstar at the safety position. I mean, the athletic traits that he's going to offer you coming in right away. He's really good in run support, and McNeil-Warren has some really good upside. And the Saints absolutely need help in their secondary. Looks like they're going to lose. They might lose a couple corners. I do think they're going to bring back Alontae Taylor, so that's why I think they could prioritize the safety position to improve that defensive back room. So the Saints end up grabbing a big-time wide receiver and a big-time safety, a huge boost to their team here in the first round of this mock draft. At 21, go Denzel Boston, wide receiver out of Washington. It's definitely clear that the Steelers need another option on that offense outside of DK Metcalf. Calvin Austin, also a free agent, who was their number 2 receiver, so really no one else in that receiver room. And you might say that Boston's really a similar type of receiver to Metcalf, so they should avoid him, but I honestly think that's a reason that they should take him. I don't think you absolutely need these 3 prototypical, the exact type of receiver that on your team. I think that you could have 2 of the same type of guy and put them on opposite sides and say, hey, go guard both of them and good luck. And these are 2 guys that are hard to guard because they're 2 guys that you really, if you get in a one-on-one situation, you're going to throw the ball up to them. 2 guys that are really good at the catch point. Boston specifically can definitely improve separation-wise, which is why I could see him potentially falling maybe even out of the first round. But with what he showed on film and in the tape last season, I don't possibly really see him falling out of the first round. I do think a team is going to take a shot on him in the first round, especially with some wide receiver needy teams at the back end of the first round. Denzel Boston to the Steelers at 21. They desperately need some wide receiver help, so this, a big boost there. Chargers at 22. I went with Vega Ioane, the guard from Penn State. I think this is a very obvious pick for the Chargers, a team that desperately needs interior of the offensive line. And if Vega Ioane is there for them, I don't really see them passing on him. He is one of the most sure things in this draft at the guard position. Going to be an instant impact in the NFL. And the Chargers are a team that just desperately needs help on the offensive line, and whether that's at the guard position or even the tackle position, a team that has two of the best tackles in the NFL, but two guys that really just have not been able to stay healthy. Both of them had some injuries last season, and that was a big part as to why their offensive line struggled so much in that playoff game and throughout the entire season. So if you want to protect Justin Herbert and you want to have a real shot of winning a Super Bowl, you've got to get some difference makers on that offensive line, and Vega Ioane would be a great start at 22. The Bucs at 23, after trading down with the Eagles, they grab a pass rusher and a guy that I think is one of the best fits in the entire draft, Cassius Howell, to the Bucs. They are in desperate need of a guy that can sack the quarterback, and if there's one thing that Cassius Howell can do, it is just that, a finesse rusher on the outside, and really another one of these one-dimensional guys in this draft in terms of the defensive lineman, a guy that offers you a lot as a pass rusher. You do question if he could try more to convert speed to power. You haven't really seen it too much in college, really just a straight speed rusher off the edge, and also really doesn't offer too much in terms of run defense, but can obviously develop. He's a great player, has the chance to develop here in this scenario with the Buccaneers. But at the end of the day, the Bucs in desperate need of a guy that can sack the quarterback in Cassius Howell, a guy that absolutely fits the bill. One of my favorite fits in this draft, Cassius Howell, for Todd Bowles' defense, as long as he is still there, which might not be for much longer. Number 24 for the Browns, another one that's a bit surprising. I went with Blake Miller, and the Browns are a team that everyone really just looks at and says offensive tackle and receiver. Those are the two biggest positions of need for them, and they really flip them at 6 and 24. You go with one at 6, you go with the other at 24. Here we went with Carnell Tate at number 6, so I gave him Blake Miller, the big offensive tackle from Clemson, at number 24. And the Browns absolutely need an offensive tackle in there. They need a guy that can solidify that offensive line. Jedrick Willis really hasn't worked out for them all too much. They need a guy on the other side anyway. And Blake Miller is just a big and strong guy that just with that frame has been a dominant tackle for Clemson. And outside, I mean, Clemson as a whole was a bit of a mess last season, but Miller is a guy that was really stable throughout the entire season while the entire team around him sort of fell apart. So I do think that Miller is going to be a first-round pick, and I think he's a guy that can go a lot higher than people think. 25, the Bears go with Peter Woods, the defensive tackle from Clemson, a guy that had a really good 2024 season, but a very down year this year, and I do still think he winds up in the first round with his tape from last season. Clemson as a whole, as we just mentioned before, with here back-to-back Clemson guys going, they were a mess last year, and it wasn't just Woods, it was other guys, T.J. Parker and Cade Klubnik, of course, that really had down years, but overall, you just got to look back at that 2024 tape and see how dominant Woods was, and he does still offer you that elite upside at defensive tackle, a great run stuffer. He offers some upside as a pass rusher as well, so it would be a great get for the Bears. And I think that defensive tackle is one of the Bears' most important positions to address this offseason. They have a really big hole there on that defense, so going to fill that here with Peter Woods, the defensive tackle out of Clemson. At number 26, the Bills go C.J. Allen, the linebacker out of Georgia. Another one of my favorite fits in this entire draft. I keep finding myself coming back to this pick with C.J. Allen going to the Bills. Matt Milano not going to be returning to Buffalo next season, so a major hole there in the middle of the defense at the linebacker position. C.J. Allen could absolutely fit that, offers elite upside with his athletic ability and really just a rangy linebacker that you can plug in there at linebacker, and the Bills would be a massive upgrade on their defense. The only other way, I mean, I could see them going with a few different positions. I could definitely see them going receiver, trying to help out Josh Allen and upgrade that offense, get him some more weapons. But if C.J. Allen is there, I do think he's the pick unless one of the big-time receivers falls to them at 26. At 27, a bit of an unorthodox pick here. I'm going with Omar Cooper Jr., the receiver out of Indiana to the Niners. Receiver definitely a need for the 49ers. They're going to lose Juwan Jennings unless they pay him a lot of money this offseason. They have Ricky Pearsall in there, who's been injured, and Brandon Ayuk is absolutely going to be cut this offseason. So wide receiver definitely a need. If they do pay Jennings, I wouldn't expect them to use this type of draft capital on a wide receiver. But in this, I'm projecting them to let Juwan Jennings walk and draft Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana, who is a guy that I think is going to be a huge riser over the next few months until the draft comes. I think he's going to be a first-round pick at receiver. I could see him being that fourth receiver off the board even before Denzel Boston. I think he would actually be a great fit with the Steelers, but I do think the Steelers would lean towards Boston just in terms of tape and what Boston was able to do on the field this season. But Cooper was really good this year in his own right. I mean, just the best option over the middle of the field for the best quarterback in the country, and Omar Cooper Jr. is a really good player, mostly in the slot in his own right. And I think Omar Cooper is going to be a first-round pick here. I have him going to the 49ers at 27. At 28, the Texans go with Monroe Freeling, the tackle out of Georgia. It's really got to be offensive line if you're the Texans here. If one of those guys is available, especially in a draft where the back end of the first round and the top of the second round really has a lot of tackles that could come off the board. Also considered a guy like Maxi Anacher out of Arizona State, big Senior Bowl riser. And then a couple other guys, maybe Caden Proctor from Alabama, who offers more versatility in terms of that he could play at guard, but ended up going with Freeling. I just think he's more of a sure thing, and for a team that's trying to compete as soon as next season in the Texans, a team that really thinks that if that offense is just an average offense, they could have been playing in the Super Bowl this season. So I think upgrading the offensive line is absolutely where they have to go here. Get C.J. Stroud the help he can get, and hopefully he can get back to his rookie season form and be your guy at quarterback. At number 29, the Rams, after grabbing Ty Simpson at 13th overall, who some would consider a reach at 13, but of course grabbing your quarterback of the future, you're going to try to reach on him. But at 29, they get a value pick in Jermon McCoy, quarterback from Tennessee, a guy who is really a top 10 player in this draft just in terms of talent if you only look at 2024, but of course had that injury where he didn't play all of 2025. So hard to project a guy like that. He with that injury, it's definitely going to be hard for teams to want to take a shot on him in the first round. So he's absolutely a guy with the injury that I could see falling to the back end of the first round, and the Rams say they don't care about the injury and just take a shot on him here at 29. They need help in the secondary. Cornerback, probably their biggest need on the roster. Maybe tackle as well, considered one of those tackles that I just mentioned, also here at 29. But I just thought that Jermon McCoy was great value, and a team like the Rams, who seems to get such good value in the draft every year, I think they'd love to make a pick like this, especially after a bit of an unorthodox pick for their organization at 13 in Ty Simpson. At 30, the Broncos go Avion Terrell, the cornerback from Clemson, another Clemson guy going here in the back end of the first round, and another cornerback. I really like the potential of all of these late first round cornerbacks. And Terrell is a guy that I really could see being the best one of the draft. I mean, you talk about a guy that just has an eye for the football. He really knows how to make a play on the ball, whether that's forcing fumbles or being a ball hawk, grabbing interceptions. He's a guy that's going to force a lot of turnovers, and I think the Broncos are really going to value that. Brother, of course, of A.J. Terrell, one of the best corners in the league for Atlanta, so has it in the family. Avion Terrell has a chance to be the best cornerback in this draft, and the Broncos do have a need at corner. They're probably going to lose Riley Moss next season. Jahdae Barron drafted last year. So I do think that the Broncos are a team that could draft a guy for the future. Maybe it won't get all too much playing time right now. Riley Moss has had his moments in the NFL where he hasn't looked so great. So Terrell could get some playing time early on, but really more of a move for the future if you're Denver. Patriots at 31, offensive line, certainly their biggest need here. They go with Emmanuel Pregnon, the guard out of Oregon. One of the better guards in this draft, of course, not an all too valued position in the draft in the NFL, but the Patriots absolutely need a game changer there on the interior of the offensive line, a guy that can protect Drake May, who is still, of course, their quarterback of the future. I know he didn't have the greatest playoff run And in fact, he had a really bad playoff run, but you can't ignore the way he played in the regular season. And the Patriots, who are probably going to have a much more difficult schedule with a first-place schedule going into next season, are going to need to improve that offensive line if they want to be able to protect him in order for Drake May to put up the stats that he put up last season. Next season as well, maybe make a run back for that MVP trophy that he came up just short of this season. So we'll see if the Patriots end up adding more to the offensive line in free agency. I'd imagine they do, but a good option here at 31 just to solidify the interior of the offensive line in one of the guard spots. Seahawks go with Brandon Cisse, cornerback from South Carolina, a guy that I think is going to be a huge riser over the next few weeks at the Combine, and that is because he's a guy that's going to test really well. Got ridiculous speed for a cornerback and just unbelievable athleticism. And if you look back to just last year, what this is going to remind you of is Nick Emmanwori, who tested unbelievably well at the Combine, and a lot of teams still passed on him, ended up going at the top of the second round, and of course was one of the biggest pieces to the Seahawks Super Bowl winning defense, one of the best defenses in recent memory, of course, led them to that Super Bowl. So the Seahawks are just going to double down on that and grab Cisse this year, a guy in a similar mold except at the cornerback position. And I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Emmanwori, but he definitely has the upside to be. He is an athletic freak at the cornerback position. And for the Seahawks, a team that's probably going to lose a bunch of corners and Josh Jobe and Tariq Woolen, they probably could get one of those guys back. I'd imagine they'd try to bring back Woolen and let Jobe walk. But cornerback going to be a need for Seattle. And Cisse at 32 would be a home run pick for them, in my opinion. Just go back to the wheelhouse and grab that athletic type of DB that you grabbed last year in Brandon Cisse. Would remind me a lot of Nick Emmanwori, and Seattle grabbing him here would be a great fit. Him in Mike McDonald's defense would be one that I think he could make an instant impact. So thank you all for watching here in this video. This was my first mock draft pre-combine. Remember that we're going to have all the news that you need, risers and fallers, during the Combine next week. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Follow us on other socials on Instagram and Twitter at dp.broadcast. And we will see you in the next video.